What's up guys, this is for all the hidden features in iOS 12. There is so much that Apple didn't mention at the keynote, stuff that could fundamentally change the way you use your device actually. So let's dig into that. There are 100 in this video with probably more to come. Okay, and this is so cool. So the 3D touch trackpad feature, you guys know about it. Now you can do the same thing on all non-3D touch devices. All you need to do is go ahead and hold on the space bar and then you can move around the cursor throughout the trackpad. I really hope Apple doesn't remove this. And Apple slightly showed this in their demo. They didn't explain it at all, but after using Do Not Disturb mode with the bedtime thing enabled, after you dismiss it, you're going to get this really nice widget on your lock screen that basically says good morning and tells you about the weather. And on the lock screen, you're going to notice there are some dark elements here and there. For example, when using the Do Not Disturb mode, it actually goes into a darkish mode. As you can see, the prompt itself gets dark. Also, the actual music player gets dark as well. So look at that. And this is default. It's just a darker look. It looks so fantastic. I would love to see those prompts being mirrored everywhere with this dark mode. Apple actually gave developers an option where they can actually enable the dark mode using certain coding here outlined in this article. So we may yet see a dark mode. Now on the lock screen, the actual X that you use to cancel out notifications is a lot bigger now, so it's easier to press. And in the actual notifications, as you can see, there's a new interface right here that's friendlier on the eyes, just easier to see what's going on when you select it. Also, down here, notification grouping, you now have the option to group the notifications automatically, as Apple did say that they'd contextually group them depending on what's going on in the notification. And in the control center, the actual status bar is much larger now when you pull it down. So if you had problems seeing it, it's definitely easier now, but I don't like this change. The default home screen orientation changes. So if you reset it, you'll notice the apps appear in different areas and FaceTime now appears in the top left. Now in the control center, when launching 3D touch platters, I noticed a much smoother animation. So it kind of flows in instead of glitches like it does over here. I also noticed that on many 3D touch platters, if I jump into them, you'll notice that they have a chin area on the bottoms. Enabling the Do Not Disturb mode no longer brings up text up top, instead just a neat little animation sliding in. And 3D touching on the camera brings up a new option to scan the QR code. Once you click on it, you get a new splash screen in the camera that talks about the QR code capability. And in the actual settings, Control Center drops down to this area down here. Previously, it was on this little island in the middle. Jumping into it, there are a couple new customizable Control Center toggles. The first one being the Scan QR code toggle that we can enable. And as you can see, it's right here. So there's that new one. Also, there's another one for hearing. So you enable that. You can use hearing aids right here. The iPhone 7 and 7 Plus now also have a haptic response when clicking the shutter button in the camera app. Previously, this was only reserved for iPhone 8 and 10 users. And this one I can absolutely feel. So the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, they do get a stronger vibration in iOS 12. For whatever reason, Apple decided to upgrade that, and it's so much more prominent now. Now also in the control center, jumping into the screen record settings, as you can see, there's a disclaimer up here that says what it'll record. It's very hard to read. I see Apple removing that in the future. Now in iOS 12, when enabling Do Not Disturb while driving, you no longer get this drop-down notification letting you know that it's on. It just turns on and off. Now in AirPlay 2, individual rooms now have support for the AirPlay control on the top right. Previously, you didn't have that option. Also, the volume icons in the individual rooms, as you can see, are larger. Probably one of the best changes on the iPhone 10 is the ability to slide apps up and delete them right away instead of having to hold and then doing so. Another really great one for the iPhone 10 is if Face ID fails to scan your face, all you need to do is swipe up once again and it'll scan again automatically instead of having to sit there and wait. Now, definitely not a feature, a bug, but I found out you can actually 3D touch on the camera over here and then swipe up and take secret pictures like this while you're appearing to be on your home screen. So you can just take them like that. And another bug you can use to your advantage in iOS 12 is one in YouTube, where in the full screen mode, quickly tap and tap again on the power button, and then the background audio keeps playing from YouTube. When you're setting up iOS 12, you're going to get a new screen, a splash screen that just says update completed, just like that. Now on the home screen, 3D touching on notes will give you a new option. New sketch has been replaced by scan a document. Awesome attention to detail in notes. Apple actually changed the tip of the pencil to a light gray color to match that of graphite instead of the filled in black one. And also, if you click on one of these, you get more details for opacity and line thickness. On the home screen, if you 3D touch on the stock Locks app, you'll see an all new widget right here. You can actually look back on the history of a company 5, 10 years, and even all time, where previously it was limited to just 2. The Voice Memos app, when 3D touched, has a new color for the recording icon. It is now red. Now, if you just copied a link and you go to Spotlight Search, it'll give you a suggestion to paste that link right there and go there right away. And the very same thing applies to numbers. So you have an option to call or text a number that you've copied. Wow, this is actually really fun. It reminds me of my childhood. So if you enable the actual hearing aid 3D Touch Control Center toggle and you have AirPods enabled, and I'm going to stick them in my ear, you get a new toggle that allows you to spy on people. So Live Listen right here will enable like a super hearing option. And there's a new widget for screen time that at a glance lets you know how much time you're spending on your device. And within the weather app, it'll now let you know when the air quality is unhealthy in certain areas. And Markup has a new color selector. So there's a wheel right here. As you can see, you can click on it and you get this plethora of colors. In the Photos application, Apple's adding more information. Scroll down and you'll get this category right here for media types. It'll let you know what kind of pictures you have and how many. Okay, quite a bit of changes in the Messages app. So jumping in, you can see there's a new interface for the App Store icons. They're now up top and you no longer have to click the button in order to enable them. Also, when you click on the button, it'll give you the suggestions for the text. So very nice. Hide those, get the App Store real quick. And it looks so clean. It's blended into the keyboard. So as you can see, the color is no longer contrasted. It blends in right away. It looks really neat. And if we go into the More Apps section here, Apple's cleaned up the interface, made the text a little bit bolder. Just looks a little bit better. And in full screen, your apps are going to look cleaner in the Messages app. As you can see, you have a title up there, and on the bottom, it goes all the way because there's no longer these apps taking up space. Previously, clicking on the camera icon would bring up this little mini interface here. Now clicking it is a full screen interface, and on the bottom left, there's a button for you to go ahead and activate effects such as animojis and so on. And because you don't have this interface anymore, Photos now has its own independent app right here where you can go ahead and select the pictures from. Also, your animojis can be up to 30 seconds long. Previously, they were limited to just 10. And on the top of the Messages app, there's a new interface here for the contact. So in here, you can quickly call them, FaceTime them, or get more info. Several changes to reachability. So activating it, as you can see, there's a little arrow up here and it's now draggable. So drag it up and down. There's really no point to it. You can't have it freeze there. Also, notice that when you actually click an app, it jumps into it right away instead of waiting for the animation to finish and then jumping in. And although we didn't get an official dark mode, Smart Invert seems to be a little bit more reliable. I noticed that icons where previously they'd be reversed and sometimes would jump in and out of being reversed are more stable now in iOS 12 and don't really do that. Siri, turn on my flashlight. Look at that. She previously couldn't do that. Hey Siri. As you can see, it now activates in low power mode, but I'm not sure if that's a glitch or not. And Siri has a couple new accents. So in the Siri voice settings, now has Irish and South African. And you can ask even more things of Siri in iOS 12. For example, Siri, what's my password for Amazon.com? She's going to bring that up. It's available in my settings. Obviously, I don't want you guys to see that. Now in settings, the sounds and haptics tab is now easier to find. Again, it's been moved up into this island where previously it was down here below. And also there's a new tab now just for voice memos, where in here you can actually change some things about how it works since Apple seemed to have removed the settings from within the app. Also in the Face ID settings, there is an option to set up an alternative appearance. If you drastically change how you look once in a while, you can actually record that appearance as well so you don't have errors with Face ID in the future. And also in the passcode settings, there's a new option to disable USB accessories. So if your device isn't unlocked, it just won't allow data to be transferred through the port. And this is of course to deter the issues like the gray key hacking box. And it seems like automatic software updates are going to be a thing in the future, as now in the software update page, automatic updates, there's an option in here to enable them. And of course there's a new default wallpaper in iOS 12, but Apple also replaced the iOS 9 wallpaper with that one. Why did they do that? And a lot of changes within the battery settings. So the recommendations now have a bubblier appearance. They actually have an icon next to it, more description, so you don't actually have to jump in to see the suggestions. Also down here, there's a new interface for tracking the battery usage. Now you can click on one of these tabs to get individual usage for a certain period, which is nice. And when applicable, you do get the option to see up to 10 days instead of the previous 7 days. And what's awesome is that the usage indicator doesn't reset after a reboot any longer. In the Siri settings, you also get an option for suggestions on the lock screen, so you can disable that if you don't want to see them. And within the Apple Books settings, a couple new toggles. You can disable reading now, which saves your spot, and you can actually sync across other devices where it'll save that spot on. In Safari, you can enable favicons using the show icons in tab settings, and as you can see, the little icon appears up there. And for the advanced, there are many new experimental features within Safari, so for developers, could come in handy. In cellular data settings, you can actually reset the period by swiping on it where previously you couldn't. Another attention to detail, in Safari on the share sheet, the actual computer on the request desktop site is now an iMac Pro with a tiny little Apple logo, so I thought that was neat. Also on the same share sheet in Safari, the favorite logo has gotten a little bit smaller, and the add to home screen one has gotten a little bit smaller as well. And on certain websites that support this feature, Safari will actually auto-generate a passcode that's very secure. And also when entering a passcode that you have to verify through text message, your keyboard will actually suggest that passcode once you get it to quickly input it. Also, Apple gave an API to apps like 1Passcode to suggest the passcode to websites you've previously logged into or have saved the passcode to easily input it just by clicking on it. And within the Music app, if you're not subscribed to Apple Music, now you're going to get this little tab or bar up top instead of being a full page intrusive ad letting you know that you're not subscribed. And also within an artist's page, a couple changes here. The actual art up top is much larger, fills a bigger portion of the display. You can actually play all of the music from the artist with this little button right here. And you can actually search for lyrics inside of Apple Music now and get the song that you want. And within the Wallet app, add credit or debit card has just been replaced by add cards. And when you get a notification from Apple Pay now, it'll give you a lot more details. I wasn't actually able to reproduce it for whatever reason, but I've seen screenshots and it definitely does give you more info. In the App Store now, if you scroll down on the Today view, there's a section for You Might Have Missed. Instead, previously you just keep scrolling for quite some time looking at all those days, but now it's just a certain little section. And there's a new animation when buying something in the App Store using Face ID. It's kind of like a half spin. Kind of nice. Now the Compass app used to have a second page with a level. Now that page has been removed since that's been moved to the Measure app. Now within third-party keyboards, you can use dictation. Apple has finally enabled it. And when using the bedtime mode, it automatically enables Do Not Disturb if the bedtime function is selected. And also in the podcast settings, there's a skip button setting for up to 60 seconds using headphones. There's a new podcast splash screen when jumping in, slightly changed. It's now called Apple Podcasts. And I've also heard from users that when they get as low as 1% on iOS 12, your phone no longer stutters, especially when using animations. I'm sure that many of you guys have experienced it. It just becomes unbearable to use. So that's since been fixed. And the last remaining ones I want to talk about are on the iPad. So you can now actually unlock an iPad the same way you would on an iPhone. Just swipe up from the bottom and it goes ahead and unlocks. Of course, you do get the iPhone 10 gestures as well now for the app switcher, and the app switcher and the control center are completely separate now. So you have that gesture up there, and this one is a lot cleaner down here. Of course, you can exit apps just by swiping up on them. And of course, there's the new status bar also. So this is to make way for a Face ID notch in the middle, making it very similar to the iPhone. I absolutely love it. And also the same as an iPhone, if you enable screen recording, you're going to get a little tiny toggle like that, letting you know that screen recording is active on the iPad. If you're watching video in full screen on a website, say like Vimeo, it's going to use that page's video player instead of Apple's native one, which might be a bug. I don't know why they would do that. So there are 100 features that Apple didn't mention at their keynote. I'm sure there will be many more, so stay tuned for future videos. Next up, speed test. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.